everybody. Thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you very much to North West Branch for this wonderful venue. I'm a health psychologist in a very big rheumatology department in Dudley in the West Midlands, and I work with patients across the whole range of rheumatic conditions. But I'm particularly fond of our local lupus group, and I've done quite a bit of work with them from a research perspective initially, but now I do work with patients on a one-to-one basis. And research is great, but I do believe that unless it translates into something in practice, it's not really a lot of good. It just kind of sits there and we look at it and go, oh, that's lovely, but what can we do with it? So I'm always on the lookout for things that I can do in practical ways with people. And one of the things that I find is very useful is learning to set SMART goals and action planning. Now, I'm sure you've probably come across this in the past in various formats. It's used across the board in industry, colleges, all kinds of things. So it's not something that's just for people with chronic disease. It's used very widely. But I do find it's a really, really effective way to help people to learn to manage their condition and to achieve things, to do some of the things that perhaps have fallen by the wayside, or to start doing new things. And as Cheryl was just saying, keeping active, joining things, writing, all kinds of things that you could do, that's certainly the perspective that I'm coming from. So I'm not quite sure how to get this to...
Just click.
Oh, right, okay. Technology, I don't really do technology. So as I say, this is something that can help you to really just influence your lifestyle, but also will help you to manage your disease. And I'm sure you've heard of cognitive behavioural therapy. Well, this really is the B in CBT, it's the behavioural part. It's really about looking at the kind of things that you're doing or not doing and working out ways of achieving that. And it's very much a problem-solving approach. It's very proactive because it requires you to do something. And I'm sure you've all guessed, as you've probably seen those sheets on the table that have appeared while you're at lunch. Part of this will be to get you to actually practice doing some of these techniques. It's good because it allows you to take control of your disease. It allows you to decide what you're going to do. It's not something that's dictated by your healthcare professional. And it gives you a good structure so that you can work out how to do things in the best way. Now, there's probably a fortnight's worth of lecturing to be done on the intention and action gap. Psychologists have spent decades looking at why people say they're going to do something, but then it doesn't necessarily translate into action. There's an enormous body of work looking at our attitudes, our beliefs and our behaviours, and certainly all the work that's currently being done looking at how we change health behaviours draws on this kind of work. I don't know how clearly you can see that, but one of the models that we use is called the stages of change model. And it's a bit like a staircase, really. So if you're thinking about changing a behaviour or starting to do something, very often you start right at the bottom, and the very bottom step is called pre-contemplation. So that's the point at which you don't really even realise there's a problem, where you're not really thinking about doing much. And then you move up to contemplation, where you think, oh yes, maybe I ought to be doing something. Perhaps I want to give up smoking, or perhaps I want to take up exercise, or maybe I want to go on a diet. But you haven't yet really done anything about it. Then you move up to the preparation stage, and that's really what we're going to look at today. How you might actually translate some of those intentions and thoughts into actions, how you might plan to achieve some of those goals. Then there's the action stage where you actually do the things that you've planned to do. And then the tricky one is the maintenance, the very top step, because with so many things that we plan to do and that we do start doing, we tend to fall by the wayside a bit. And so a lot of the work that's done in health behaviour change looks at how we can keep people on that maintenance step. How can we encourage people to continue to do the things that they plan to do? And in reality, what actually happens is that we continually move up and down this staircase. We're not so good that we literally walk straight up in a straight line, carry on doing the behaviours and everything's lovely. Anyone that's ever been on a diet, me included, will know that you start off, you get up there, and then inevitably you slide back down again. So it's constantly kind of revisiting the staircase. So if you think about goal setting in a more detailed way, we often set ourselves very broad goals, very broad targets. They're not very specific. We're often quite vague about things that we'd like to do. And I suppose the classic example is New Year resolutions. Anyone that's ever made a New Year resolution, often they don't translate into action very easily because they're often very broad, they're very vague, and we often don't sustain them or achieve them at all, and that can be quite demotivating. I know myself, my husband lurking in the corner there, that when we say we'll do something next week, the chances of that happening are probably very slim. So SMART goals help us turn these intentions into actions. And we know from research that has been done that people who plan their goals and their actions in a very specific way fare much better and achieve much more than people who are a bit vague about things. Kind of makes sense, doesn't it, really? So I want to take you through the idea of SMART goals, and the first one is obviously the S, and the S stands for specific. So we've already got our intention, we've already got the thing that we have decided to do, but we now have to get down to the nitty-gritty. We now have to think about, well, specifically what are we going to do? And as I say, vague and general goals don't tend to happen, and worse than that, when you don't achieve something, you get quite demotivated, and psychologically that can be a bit of a whack. You can kind of feel quite bad about yourself, you feel that you failed, and so it kind of sets up a very unpleasant feeling that you're not getting where you want to be. So, I'm going to share with you one of my goals, and you can laugh like drains as we go through this, if you give permission. So my vague intention is I would like to lose some weight. So, that's an intention, yeah? Is it very specific?
No.
No, it's not very specific. I will lose 3 stones. Wow. Wow, yeah. So I've changed my I would like to I will, something very definite. Is there any problem with this?
No time.
Well, not really.
Too much.
Too much, yeah, I can see some, be as cruel as you like, it's fine. I can see some shaking heads, that's probably not very realistic. It's specific. How am I going to measure this? Well, I need to really have a date by which I'm going to have achieved this by, aren't I? I have to decide what my target is exactly. And for the kind of goals that you're setting, you may then need to ask yourself questions like, well, by when? When am I going to achieve something? It might involve how much of something you're going to do, how often or how many times you're going to do it. So for me, my measurable, I will lose 3 stones by August. Now, where are we now?
2020.
May.
We'll be watching you. We'll be watching.
You can cut your head off on it.
I haven't got a report back, have I?
We'll have a special conference for you.
You won't be able to see me by then. So it's very specific. So I've set myself a date. I'm going to do it by August. It's measurable. It's 3 stones. Realistic? No, not really, is it? The A obviously stands for achievable. It's got to be something that you can actually do. You have to ask yourself, is this a real goal or is it a fantasy? Well, I think the 3 stones is a bit of a fantasy, to be honest. Particularly at my age, I don't think 3 stones is going to disappear anytime soon. And that goal really is too big, isn't it? While being quite honest, for my height, I probably could easily stand to lose 3 stone. That's too big a goal. I would need to break that down. And I need to break it down into something that's much more manageable. So, What about I will lose 1 stone by August? Yeah? Have we got a vote of confidence on that one? So it's specific, it's measurable, know when I'm going to do it by, and it's achievable. I reckon I could probably do that, and I will let you know. What about relevant or realistic? Well, these goals have got to be something that you want to do yourself. You've got to ask yourself, is this something for you, or is this something to please somebody else? Well, this is relevant to me. Is it something that's completely outside your control and influence? You know, I have patients who come to me and say, well, my goal is to get rid of this illness. And yes, that is an absolutely fantastic goal, but it's not very realistic. It's something that's just not within your control. One day maybe, but not at the moment. So, I will lose 1 stone by August. It's relevant to me because it will improve my health. It's something that I want to do for me, not anybody else. And it is 1 stage towards a bigger target. As I say, you have to have a time set for when you're going to know whether or not you've achieved your goal. So you need to have an end point. You need to have a time period over which that you're going to achieve your aim. Now, the problem with my goal, although it's very specific, it's measurable, it's achievable, it's still too big because I've not said how I'm actually going to do it. So what I would now need to do is to go back to my SMART goals and then work out, well, how am I going to do this? How much am I going to lose per week? Do I need to get any information to help me do that? Do I need to enlist the support of family? Do I need to tell them not to buy me sweets and cakes? Do I need to stop big family meals where people are trying to feed you up? Do I need to join something like Weight Watchers or Slimming World? Do I need to talk to the nurse at the doctor's? Do I need to get some NHS support? Do I need to get a referral to a weight management clinic? So all these kind of things are things that you can plan within your SMART targets. What kind of things do I need to do to achieve that goal? Of course, one of the first things you have to avoid is actually putting off starting the action. Do you remember the contemplator at the bottom of the staircase? They were aware that there was something they wanted to do, but they hadn't actually done anything about it yet. And of course, the worst thing you can possibly do with an action is to not actually start doing it. Do you put obstacles in the way? And if you do, you have to take quite a cold look at why you're doing that. What is it that's kind of stopping you from doing the things you want to do? And you also have to work out the possible downsides and the things that you're going to do to deal with them. So you have to kind of adopt a problem-solving approach. If you think there's something that might get in the way, you have to work out the strategies to account for those. What are you going to do to solve those problems so they don't get in the way of your ultimate target? And one of the things you can use is something called a confidence ruler. And they typically range from 1 to 10, where 1 is that you have total confidence in what you're going to achieve, and 10 is no confidence at all. And what you do is that you make your plan, and then you rate how confident you are that you can actually achieve it. Now, if you're scoring less than a 7, you have to ask yourself, what would turn, say, a 3, for example, into an 8? What would have to change in your plan to make you feel more confident? So once your plan is something that you're happy with, that you think you're really pretty confident you can achieve, then that's a plan that you can start to work with. Now, you'll notice that you've all got personal goal-setting sheets on the table. And what I'd like us to practice doing is actually setting some goals. Now, I'm quite happy for you to do them individually, but you might not want to do that because you could be deciding to do very personal things and you might not want to share that with people. So what I would suggest you do, as we've got this format already laid out for us, is perhaps to work on something as a table. So if you weren't talking to everybody that's with you, you will be now. And decide on a goal that you might set. You can just pick an imaginary goal if one of you does have something that you'd like to do. And then work through your goal setting sheet to plan exactly how you would do that, using the SMART principles that I've just outlined to you. So you have to be very specific in the goal, it has to be achievable, it has to be relevant, and you have to have an end point. What I suggest we do is that we spend some time having a quick go at doing that, and then if it's okay with you, we'll kind of reconvene, and then if one or two of you don't mind sharing what you've done, we'll kind of talk about how easy or how difficult it was, and have a bit of a discussion about it. Is that okay? Yeah? I'll kind of wander about, and then if you're getting stuck, grab me and I'll put your hand up and I'll come and give you a hand.